Welcome to Data Manipulation and Cleaning. In this video, we will be focusing on loading data from different sources. And these sources include CSV, API, and databases. Our first focus will be CSV. And what is CSV? CSV is comma-separated files. And in this section, when loading data from CSV using TableSaw, you have to ensure that the data is comma separated, and for a case that you're loading the entire data set, you also need to assume that the file has a header. In case that you want to load specific columns of a particular data set, you need to know the data type of each and every column, and you should also need to know the structure of the table, like how many columns does the table have. In those columns, is there a string column, is there a number column, or double column? Let's see how we can use CSV in TableSaw. We are currently in our IDE, and I have my project. It's called Hands-on Data Analytics in Java, and I've created a class which is called loadingdata.java. This is where we are going to load our data from CSV. So the first thing that you need to know is where is your CSV located. And as you can see in the main class, I've created a main class where I'll be loading my CSV from. And my CSV is located outside this project folder. In Eclipse, there's Eclipse Workspace. So my CSV file is in Eclipse Workspace, but outside my project folder. That's why I need to go 2 dots and then I go to the folder. You need to call the table and then you give your table a name and then you do table.read.csv. In this section, it reads all the entire CSV and it also detects all the data types in each of the columns in that CSV. Once you load your CSV, you should be able to check what is the structure of the CSV. How does it look like? And in this section, this is where we are getting the structure of the table that I've just loaded. To get the structure of the table using TableSaw, you need to declare a variable called structure of the type table. And this is where you call the table that you have created here, hranalytics.structure. And whatever this returns is all the columns that you have there in your table and the data type of those columns. And that's why I'm printing it to actually see that I've been able to print the structure. Let's now run our code and see the output of our file. So make sure that your code compiles and run it. As you can see in our console, we loaded the table and we can be able to see the structure of the table, the columns that it has, and the data type of each and every column. That's how you load data using a CSV. In the next step, we'll be using application programming interface. And this is where you can load data from sites that are remote. They don't need to be stored locally in your machine. You can use it in GitHub, Kodo, Kaggle, and also to retrieve data from other online sites that have CSV embedded in it. Let's look at how we can be able to achieve that. This is commenting the previous code so that we can be able to load from the API. So where our location of the API, we are loading a file that is in the GitHub, and it has the bosh.csv. And this is where you call table, hranalytics table. You need to call the input stream when you're loading the input from a different place other than your local machine. And the input stream, we have to define our variable called input of the type input stream, and we need to give it new URL. And this URL, we need to give it our location that we have defined as the string. And then we need to call the .openStream. This ensures that we have opened a connection to start streaming. And the table that we declared, we need to just say table.read.csv. We give it our input. This is the string to the location. And we give it what is the name of the table that we want to load. It's the bush. And once you load it, you need to test to ensure that you have actually gotten the table that you were looking for using that API. So you come to the stream structure and you call the table.structure, and then you print out the structure to ensure that you have gotten it right. So let's run the code and see what comes out. So this is the structure of the bush table, and it has 3 columns: date, approval, and who. And we can be able to see the data type of each and every column. And that's how you load data from an API using TableSaw in Java. Let's move on to the next. Loading data from databases. A database is an organized collection of data stored and accessed electronically. And what are the key things that you need to ensure when you're loading data from a database? You need to ensure that you connect to the database. This is by providing the database name, your username, and also the password that you use to connect to a particular table. And then the next one will be retrieving data. Which data do you want to retrieve? In a database, there are many tables, there are many sections of data. You need to be very particular about the data that you want to retrieve. So let's see how you can be able to achieve this using TableSaw. So we will be connecting to our database, and my database name is the customers, and the table name is the customer. And you need to identify where is that database located, which port is it, and what is the name of that database. So if you're using localhost, mostly it's 3306 / the name of the database. You need to con of the type connection, and then you need to use a try and catch, so that if your connection is not returned true, you will be alerted. And this is where I now come and define my database URL and the user I use to that particular database, and then this is my password to the database. Basically, I'll change these details. You're not supposed to be exposing your information. And I have to define the table that I'll be working with once that database is returned. The table in that database needs to be saved in my DB customers. And which data am I retrieving since I've already established the connection? So I want to select all the customers which are in the table customer with all their columns, with all their data. And they will be returned as a result of the type result set. And this calls my statement, and it executes this SQL query I've given it here. And my DB customers, I'll use now table.read.db. We are not using .csv. This is .database, and I'll give it my results, which is of type result set. And then I'll give it, this is the particular table that I want it. And in case you have an error, the SQL returns an error, you will be notified by printing it out. And once you retrieve the data, you need also to print the structure of that table to know that you have been able to retrieve it successfully. Let's run the code and be able to see what we will get from our database. Currently, it's empty, but I'm trying to show you that it can actually be able to retrieve these customer. The other data sets, they were all with data, so I want to also show that in case you still have a data, in case you have a table and it still doesn't have a data, you will be able to see that. So a case of our customer table, it does not have data, but it will be able to show us the structure of the customer table. And for now, you'll still be able to see the structure. We have customer ID, first name, last name, passport number, and city. So this is how you are able to retrieve data from a database using TableSaw. For the references, you need to check TableSaw documentation about loading data from different data sources.